I lost my spouse and nearly gave up. These 6 things brought me back. Have you ever stood in a room you once shared with someone and suddenly realized it doesn't feel like home anymore? Maybe it's the silence, the kind that follows you from the kitchen to the bedroom. Or maybe it's that one chair no one sits in anymore. That half of the bed that stays cold every night. You keep expecting a voice, a laugh, even just the sound of their footsteps. But it never comes. That's where I found myself after my husband passed. I wasn't just grieving the loss of the person I loved most. I was grieving the loss of me. I didn't know who I was without him. For over 40 years, we built a life together. We made routines, shared jokes no one else would understand, and navigated every twist and turn of life hand in hand. And then, just like that, one day I was alone. If you're watching this, maybe you've been there too. Or maybe you're there right now. If so, I want you to know you're not alone and you're not broken. Grief changes us, but it doesn't have to erase us. Today, I want to share with you something deeply personal. The steps I took to find myself again after losing my spouse. These aren't just tips from a book. These are pieces of my own journey. And maybe, just maybe, they'll help you take that first step forward too. It didn't happen overnight. In fact, it started with something small, something I barely noticed at the time. I was standing at the sink, washing the same mug I used every morning, and I caught my reflection in the kitchen window. I looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. That moment shook me more than I expected. It was the first time I truly asked myself, who am I now? And that question led me to the first step in healing, allowing myself to feel everything. You see, I used to think I had to be strong all the time, that crying was something to do in private, that if I kept busy, kept smiling, kept saying I'm fine, the pain would eventually fade. But grief doesn't work like that. It waits. It hides behind everyday moments. A favorite song on the radio, a birthday that passes quietly, the scent of their cologne tucked away in the back of the closet. It catches you off guard. And if you don't let yourself feel it, it will find a way to show up anyway. So I stopped pretending I was okay when I wasn't. I gave myself permission to cry in the middle of folding laundry, to sit on the couch with their old sweater and just miss them. I didn't try to rush the process, because healing isn't linear. Some days you feel like you're making progress, and the next day you feel like you're starting all over again. That's normal. That's human. And feeling it all, every messy, uncomfortable, raw emotion, isn't weakness. It's part of becoming whole again. And as I began to honor those feelings, something else happened. I realized how many parts of my identity were tied up in being a spouse, which led me to the second step, rediscovering the things that made me me. It's easy, isn't it, to lose yourself in a long-term relationship? Not in a bad one. It's just when you spend so many years making decisions together, sharing space, raising kids, building routines, you forget what it was like to do things just for you. I hadn't picked up a paintbrush in over 2 decades. I used to love painting back before the kids came along, before life got so busy. And one afternoon, I pulled out an old box from the garage, full of brushes, half-dried paint, some yellowing sketch pads, and I started again. It wasn't about being good at it. It wasn't even about finishing anything. It was about reconnecting with a part of me that had been quiet for too long. That simple act of creating, of exploring something that wasn't tied to my past, reminded me that I was still here, that I still had something to offer, something to express. Maybe for you it's gardening, or playing piano, or writing little poems in a notebook. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it's yours. It's something that lights a little spark, even on the gray days. Something that reminds you, you are more than your grief, more than your loss. As I leaned into those small joys, I started to notice a shift. I wasn't smiling out of politeness anymore. I was smiling because I meant it, and I wasn't surviving the day. I was living it. Not every day, of course, but enough to notice, enough to keep going. That brings me to something else I had to learn. Something I resisted for a long time. Letting others in again. But before we talk about that, let's take a breath, Because what we've talked about so far, feeling deeply, rediscovering yourself, it's not easy. It takes courage. And if you're here, if you've made it this far, I just want to say, I'm proud of you. Truly. This isn't a journey any of us asked for, but you're walking it with grace, even if you don't feel like it yet. Letting others in again. Now that was one of the hardest things for me. After my husband passed, people reached out, friends, neighbors, even old church acquaintances I hadn't seen in years. They sent cards, offered to bring meals, invited me to join them for coffee or a walk. And you know what I did? I smiled, said thank you, and politely declined. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I didn't know how to be with people anymore. I didn't want to sit at a dinner table where everyone was coupled off. I didn't want to answer questions like, "How are you holding up?" when I could barely get through the day without breaking down. Grief has a funny way of isolating us. It makes you feel like you're the only one walking through the fog. But the truth is, connection is one of the most powerful parts of healing. It started small. I didn't jump into a book club or sign up for social events right away. Instead, I called my sister. We hadn't talked in months, not because anything was wrong, but just life. I told her I missed her. We cried on the phone, and that one conversation opened a door I hadn't realized was shut. From there, I started saying yes more often. Yes to my neighbor's invitation to sit on the porch for tea. Yes to my son's suggestion to join him and the grandkids at the park. Yes to a friend who invited me to a gentle yoga class for seniors. Was it uncomfortable at first? Absolutely. I felt awkward, out of place, like everyone could see the sadness on me. But slowly, those moments became easier. And more than that, they became something I looked forward to. Not because they distracted me from my grief, but because they reminded me I was still part of something. That even though I had lost a piece of my heart, I hadn't lost all of my life. And through those connections, I stumbled upon something unexpected. Other people who had been through the same kind of loss. One day after yoga class, a woman named Carol came up to me. She was probably in her late 60s, silver hair pulled into a neat bun, eyes that looked like they'd seen a lot. She said, "You're new here, right? I came after my husband died. Couldn't sit at home anymore." And just like that, a door opened. We started walking together after class, sharing stories, not just about our husbands, but about life, grief, memories, even silly things like recipes and our favorite TV shows. It reminded me that grief doesn't mean the end of your ability to relate, to laugh, to be understood. And if you let people in, they can help carry the weight, even if just for a little while. That brings me to something that surprised even me. The importance of creating new routines. When you've lived with someone for decades, your days are filled with tiny rituals that revolve around them. Morning coffee at the same table, the way you'd plan dinner, watching the news together at 6 o'clock. When they're gone, those moments feel empty, and without realizing it, your day begins to unravel. You wake up and wonder why. You eat because you have to, not because you want to. Evenings feel like a wall of silence. So one morning I decided to try something different. I got up and took a walk before breakfast. Not far, just around the block. But I noticed the fresh air, the birds, the way the sunlight hit the leaves. It gave my morning a new anchor. Then I added a short journal session. Just a few lines a day. What I felt, what I missed, what I hoped for. I started cooking dinner again, even if it was just for me. I lit a candle, played some soft music. Not because I was trying to fill the silence, but because I was learning to enjoy my own company. Slowly, those new rituals became a source of comfort. They weren't replacing my old life. They were helping me build a new one that still honored my past but made space for my present. And through that, I learned something else, perhaps the most powerful shift of all. I began to realize that healing doesn't mean forgetting, that I could carry my husband's memory with me, not as a weight, but as a light. And that led me to a deeply meaningful step, finding a purpose beyond the pain. This one didn't come quickly. For a while, I just felt like I was going through the motions. But one afternoon, I was looking through a bundle of old letters, notes he had written me over the years, cards from birthdays, scribbled "I love you" notes left on the counter. And I felt this overwhelming urge to share what I'd learned. Not in a big flashy way, just to give something back. I started volunteering at a local grief support group, not to lead or give advice, but just to be there, to listen, to hold someone's hand if they needed it. I helped organize memory walks for people who had lost loved ones. I baked cookies for hospice staff and dropped them off with a little thank you note. And slowly I found that giving, even in small, quiet ways, helped me feel connected to something bigger than myself. It reminded me that I still had value, that even in my sorrow I could offer comfort, that my experience, my story could help someone else take that first shaky step forward. And that's what I want for you. There's something quietly powerful about helping someone else through a storm you've survived yourself. Not because it takes the pain away, but because it gives it purpose. And that purpose, even in the smallest form, can bring a sense of peace that grief alone never could. But I'll be honest with you, there were still days when I felt like I was going in circles. Healing isn't a straight road. It's more like walking through a forest where the path appears, disappears, and sometimes feels like it leads nowhere. I had to learn that it's okay to move forward one day and take 2 steps back the next. What mattered most wasn't how fast I was healing. It was that I kept going. And one of the things that helped me keep going was something I hadn't given myself permission to do in a long time. Laugh. That might sound strange. Laughter in the middle of grief. But I remember the exact moment it happened. I was watching an old comedy show one night, something we used to watch together. At first it felt wrong, like I was betraying his memory by enjoying anything without him. But somewhere in the second act, there was a joke so silly, so perfectly timed, that I actually laughed out loud. And for just a moment, I felt free. Not because the sadness was gone, but because I had made space for something else alongside it. That's when I realized healing doesn't mean removing your grief. It means learning how to live with it and still find joy. So I started doing more of that, watching shows that made me smile, sitting in the park and people watching, letting my grandkids make a mess in my kitchen while we baked cookies, allowing the joy in, even if it only came in short bursts, because little by little those bursts started to grow. Grief and joy can live in the same house. One doesn't cancel out the other. And allowing yourself to feel joy, again, isn't forgetting your loved one. It's honoring the life you still have. But even with laughter returning, there was one more step I had to take. The one that truly brought everything together. It was the step that helped me stop simply surviving and start living with intention again. That was learning to speak kindly to myself. After my husband died, my inner voice wasn't very gentle. It said things like, "You should be doing better by now. Why are you still so sad? Other people seem to handle this better. What's wrong with you?" That voice wasn't just harsh, it was exhausting, and it kept me from seeing the progress I was actually making. So one day I tried something different. Instead of criticizing myself for feeling low, I said, "You're doing the best you can today, and that's enough." Instead of shaming myself for still crying sometimes, I said, "Your love was deep. Of course your grief is too." And you know what? That shift in how I spoke to myself changed everything. I began treating myself like I would treat a dear friend who had just lost someone. I offered patience, grace, encouragement. I celebrated little wins, getting out of bed on hard days, cooking a meal instead of skipping dinner, going to an event even if I left early. Every small act became a sign of resilience, a reminder that I was still standing. And now, looking back, I can see how far I've come, not because I've moved on, but because I've moved forward, with love, with purpose, and with a heart that still misses, but no longer feels lost. If you're walking this path right now, please hear me when I say, you are not alone. You are not broken. And there is no right or wrong way to grieve. There is only your way, one step at a time. Let yourself feel the hard days. Let yourself rediscover what lights you up. Let people love you. Build new routines that comfort you. Laugh, even when it surprises you. And most of all, be gentle with yourself. This journey isn't about replacing what you've lost. It's about reconnecting with who you are, who you've always been, and learning that even in the absence of someone you love, you are still here, still valuable, still worthy of joy. Thank you for being here with me, for allowing me to share this piece of my heart. If this video spoke to you, I hope you'll leave a comment below. Maybe share your story or just a few words about where you are in your journey. We're stronger when we walk together. And if you found comfort or clarity in these words, I'd be so grateful if you gave this video a like, shared it with someone who might need it, and subscribed for more honest, supportive conversations like this one. Here's to healing at your own pace, to remembering with love and living with hope. Here's to living your best life, one day, one breath, one moment at a time. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. If this video gave you something to think about or made you smile, please give it a like, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom every week. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and join the conversation. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Until next time, stay wise, stay kind, and take care.